Camera microphone. See if that makes any difference. Testing. Yeah, so that's picking up that mic. I don't want that mic though. It's not a good mic. Let's see. See if that makes any difference. Yeah, it did pick it up. Testing. Okay. Yeah, so that's picking up that mic. I don't want that mic though. It's not a good mic. Try switching back to the other one. See if that makes any difference. Yeah, it did pick it up. Testing. Switch back to this one, and we'll just have to live with it. Sometimes it has a, kind of a crappy sound. So, but too bad. Back to this one, we'll just have to live with it. All right. So sometimes it has a, kind of a crappy sound. All right. Turn the sound off on this, and so yeah, I know there's no sound. Now there is. I said, "Fuck you." But thank you. Yes, I am testing. So it's quite a lag between the video and me live. So they ought to not lie about that. They ought to say, yes, lags terribly. So there's a huge lag. Anyway, all right. So there's no relevant comments here. Let's see. I have to make this. Sorry, I just it's been a while since I've done this shit, and I have to figure out how to use it again. I need to make this window smaller so I can see the chat. I don't know why they have two chats. I still don't get that. But I don't know if anybody ever talks in this stupid other one anyway. But it doesn't matter. Okay. So that seems like that's working. All right. So now I have to find the comment window where I hid that. I don't know where the hell that is. Should be here, I think. All right, then I can go back to my plan. It's just to read some comments, and I will attempt to be aware of your comments as they come in and such. But we'll see how that goes. All right. Yeah, so seems to be working, right? Right. Yes. Okay. So Michael Falwell. I think the Wheeler guy has swallowed a dictionary, as my granddad used to say. There's a lot of rattle and an empty barrel. Well, grandfather wasn't a bit of a kook. I left Mr. Wheeler a comment just for a simple explanation and further clarification on what the fuck he is trying to convey. Sadly, no response. Yeah, well, okay. Well, it doesn't really matter. You can't expect any response. He's obviously a pathetic coward. But anyway, you got to reach him and debate him, please. So this is on a different fat guy video. Anyway, this would be an amazing and fulfilling demonstration. He has valid points, as you do. Well, he really doesn't have any valid points, because his replacement for the silly thing that he might point out is silly, like waves in what? It's just another thing where you go, so you change its name. You change its name from a field to ether, and therefore I'm not supposed to say waves in what? It's the same bullshit. The magical, non-described, invisible ether that we can't detect with all of our technology. Anyway, let's have a meeting of the minds here. Anyway, too few profitable debates these days. Well, again, it's only because he's a coward. So you just have to keep pointing out he's the chicken shit. Put this shit on him, okay? I've invited him to debate like 4 dozen times, and he's chicken at the end. All right, another Ken Wheeler comment. Sorry, sir, but you have failed to convince me of anything. So the very beginning of the video, I pointed out how he did an experiment that was completely bogus, because you can't weigh a magnet on a scale that has metal parts in it, because the magnet fucks up the measurement of the weight. So you have to put it on top of a jar or something on the scale, and some other way to measure its absolute weight. But obviously, you can't do an experiment where you put the magnet down in the center of the scale when you've already demonstrated that you get the wrong reading for the weight of the magnet in the center of the scale. So I didn't convince you that that was a bogus experiment? Well, then you're too fucking stupid, asshole. Jeez. All right, so some guy says, Hyper Guitar, Herbie Guitar, I sent email to your old account. I don't even know why somebody would do that. So maybe he thinks I'm Miles Mathis or something. This Miles Mathis changed his email address. But it's just, why would somebody even leave a remark like that? What old account? What if I say, how could that even mean something to somebody? I sent an email to your old account. You're just saying, who are these people? All right, anyway. All right, so Michael again. Let's see. The moon puzzles me. Well, why the fuck would it puzzle you? It's not very complicated. How it fits in with external pressure instead of the mainstream gravity idea. The pressure's everywhere. Everything falls. The moon's falling into the Earth, and it just happens to have enough velocity not to fall into the Earth. What's so complicated? It's poised in the conventional sense that it's posited. Okay. That the moon pulls up the world's oceans. Well, it's not, that's always been a complex question. And it really doesn't pull them up. It's pushing them from the poles. So it's shear. So the real force that makes the oceans rise is the fact that the oceans get thinner at the poles. The moon thins the ocean on the poles. And obviously it has to go somewhere, so it goes to the middle as it orbits around the planet. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on the subject. Well, there's been, they've studied this thing for hundreds of years, trying to figure exactly how it works, and really that's what they figured out is the centrifugal force is pushing the water out, and this force is doing that, and this force is doing that, but the real game is the moon's gravity is really just pulling the water because of its, because it moves, and the ground doesn't. And so the water gets pulled off the poles, essentially. That's why the real high tides are usually pretty far north and pretty far south. The highest tides is because that's where most of the water is leaving. All right, chili sauce. I don't understand. Yeah, all these comments just are shit. You may have been asked this before. Density argument versus no gravity. I just still can't. What the fuck could that mean? It's worth consideration, ? Just a yes or no. I know you are busy. Well, it's nice that you're being considerate of my busyness, but how can anybody even understand what that is? Density argument versus no gravity. What the fuck does that mean? I mean, you really think that's a something in real physics somewhere? I mean, I've watched a lot of physics videos. A lot. I never heard of the density argument versus no gravity. What the hell is that? Well, the Jeff Yee guy, who I'm going to talk to later, he says something about a density thing somewhere. I was like, the density problem. I'm like, what density problem? What are you talking about? There's no density problem. All right, so this is the scumbag who used to have another name, but I blocked him, and I'll probably block him again because he's just an asshole. I don't have you can be rude, and I'll just say why do I have to tolerate it? You're an anonymous coward. I mean, you could at least have a real name with an account and have some kind of content on it, so I can go pick at your shit. But if you're not going to do that, then you got to be a little bit polite, just a little bit. And if you can't manage it, fuck off. I mean, it's not that complicated. I'm not insulting your mother. I'm insulting mothers in general. I'm allowed to do that. I'm allowed to have a philosophically different perspective on the world than you without accepting this rude shit from you, you fuck. Let's see. Looks like calling you out on the fact that the bar pattern has to do with the eyes. So again, he thinks that the reason why all the single slit patterns don't look like the pattern created by electrons is because of our eyes not being able to see it right. So you think it's some kind of eye problem, that we're not seeing the actual pattern because our eyes are broken. No, that didn't hurt my feelings in any way. It hurt my brain to think some asshole thinks that's why it doesn't look right. It's because somehow our eyes don't work. Hurt your little feelings, fucking ego again. Yeah, it doesn't hurt me at all. I'm just saying you're asking me to somehow demonstrate why they can't make photons look like electrons. I don't have to do that. It's their job. Seriously, why don't you go out and measure the light intensity with a photodiode? Well, you understand how big a photodiode is? And you're measuring photons, individual photons. So you think that's really practical? I mean, first you'd have to have a really nice pattern, and you have to be able to project it a pretty far distance to be able to use photodiodes to measure the light intensity. You do understand that, don't you? That it's not just something you do, casually to do right. And then even setting up an electronics that can count the photons, measure them properly is a little bit of work. And plot it. If it turns out that the square pattern, it's a square pattern, well, again, it's not my obligation. I'm pointing out inconsistencies in their experiments and their claims. Their experimental evidence doesn't match their claims. Now, you say it's my obligation to go further than just pointing it out that there seems to be an obvious inconsistency. No, it's their obligation. Then you will single-handedly defeat all the 1800s of physics. Well, again, where in the 1800s were they able to measure photons with that kind of accuracy? You will expose just how unreasonable science really is. Now, I've already done that in the sense that I've pointed out how they've jumped to hard conclusions on incredibly weak evidence for the strength of their confidence, that their confidence level is nowhere near in proportion to the evidence they have backing that confidence up. That's the simple statement. You're claiming that somehow the evidence does match. And I'm pointing out how, well, no, it doesn't. So you're the one that should come up with the photodiode proof, asswipe. And you will be vindicated for calling anyone who provides you with relevant material a liar. So again, who provided me with relevant material here? You're wasting this comment on this mush when you should be posting links to this relevant material. Where's the relevant material? Where's the single photon experiment with an interferometer? Where is it? Where's your photodiode experiment with light and the two-slit experiment? Demonstrating that it really is a gradual pattern and somehow our eyes didn't see it right. Where's your evidence that our eyes can't resolve the gradual pattern, that somehow our eyes can't see the difference between something that's a smooth gradation and kind of hard lines? You don't have any evidence our eyes fail at that job. Go ahead. You have one task. No, you have a task. Again, you say the evidence matches the conclusions. Show me the hard evidence that gravity bends anything like a photon. Show me the evidence where gravity bends a photon. One fucking task to do. Well, why don't you, again, show me the evidence where photons are bent by gravity. Instead, you, sir, you sit behind your camera and spout the same nonsense over and over again. Well, again, you think it's nonsense because you're one of the fanatics, a religious kook. So you think evolution is nonsense. That pointing out DNA and pointing out this and pointing out that, and then pointing out all the flaws in a God theory, like, everybody can't be right. You can't have 7 million gods. So most of you have to be wrong right away. Most of the religious people have to have the wrong answer just by logic alone. At best, one of them might be right, but by logic, none of them are likely right. God, you are so fucking pathetic. No, you're pathetic. Again, you're an anonymous coward. You talk this shit. You put up nothing. You make claims that you have some evidence of something, and yet you don't provide any of this evidence of anything. You dumb sack of turds. Well, again, you're a turd on a sack of turds. So fuck you. Again, I don't have to tolerate this crap from assholes like you. Fuck you. Unpersuasive. All right. So another Ken Wheeler comment. Using technical terms doesn't make you competent, but make you look smart in average people's eyes. This is what Ken is using to look smart. No, what he's doing is he's using Tesla and some pretense that this is some sort of real science, because everybody wants a different answer than the truth. Everybody's some kind of truther kook, and they're just looking for anything contrary, anything anti. I mean, they're just like little 13-year-old kids dressing in black, and doing the whole goth thing or something. It's just bullshit. All right, I think I understood what the Scar Runner was saying. Well, there's no point in trying to make sense out of it. Let's see, maybe she was just sort of rewording an understanding. He wasn't saying gravity is coherent, but agreeing that it makes sense that light and gravity are made of the same bits, except that light comes at a frequency. Well, that doesn't mean it's coherent. So again, whatever. I'm not gonna. People have to be reasonably articulate, and it's just one of the rules. All right. So then this guy, this just sounds like so much conspiracy theory to me. I have the impression that there are a lot of trade secrets being protected. You keep asking why there is so much nonsense in the field. Major governments, companies, and universities will keep a tight lid on new information and discoveries. And again, what are those? Where are those? So, and I mean, most of the crap coming out of things is coming out of like LIGO and CERN. You really think they're going to make a Higgs boson potato chips or something? It's never going to be used for anything. It's useful crap. It's useless crap. So I don't even believe, there's the theoretical physics is way out of, it's way beyond anything useful. It's like saying they're going to come up with a quantum computer. What a crock of shit. Think about weapons. Metal, I don't even know what this is, metallurgical knowledge, and was kept in secrecy. If your opponent could make a better sword, big universities are funded by military industrial complex with big oil and big egg G. What if you're right? Well, again, I think most of military research wants to be done in military, in McDonnell Douglas or something. But I'm just saying there doesn't seem to be any secrets, and secrets get out too easy. And what's the big, where is it? Where's the big, huge new technology thing? All they've done is make things small or using machines to make circuit boards, but there hasn't been anything else going on. Are humans really for another Pandora's box? I don't even know what that means. Take your ideas and keep relentlessly pursuing. How would this revised explanation be applied into technology? Well, see, the truth is, some facts are facts. You know what I mean? So, I mean, whether you can get some things wrong, and it's not going to be too consequential. Like this Jeff Lee guy, I think he has some kind of hope that you can come up with some new physics and it'll create some kind of new way to do nuclear energy or something, because we'll have some new knowledge and therefore we'll be able to exploit nuclear energy better or something like that. And some of the underlying physics you just can't fix, in the sense that this whole idea that force is a consequence of imbalances, and to have an imbalance you have to have a big explosion or a big huge mass, or it's just messy. And that the rest of the energy is pulled out of places where it's been stored. So a lot of pressure has been stored in a very small space. And so that's sort of what the atom is. The atom's a lot of pressure in a very small space. And it's just difficult to release that pressure without releasing a lot of toxic bits of radiation and other kinds of shit. So it's, understanding better would probably make it a little bit easier to, you know, to squeeze the atoms and get their energy. But again, the amount of energy we're using is so huge. It's an insane amount of energy when you think, in terms of like how many electrons in 1 ampere, 1 volt and 1 ampere through 1 ohm of resistance is like 2 zillion electrons. I mean, it's, we just don't have an appreciation for the scale of and the magnitude of how much atom smashing is just in simple chemistry. Anyway, worst case, someone figures out how to build a very powerful explosive device. Well, again, we've already sort of figured out how to do that. But yes, that's sort of my hope, actually, is that, the side effect of this better understanding might be that, yes, we learned that, oh, you just have to mix water and, a tablespoon of carbon and 3 dashes of this and an eye of a newt, and the whole universe blows up. So yes, there could be some sort of knowledge gained that you're able to cause a chain reaction that just wipes the entire universe out. More waste products that can't be recycled or hazardous to the environment. Scientists are competing for grants, have signed non-disclosure agreements. Well, again, this subject really doesn't have anything to do with that kind of protected science. This is about the fundamental. Again, it's about understanding causes, not the effects. We understand a lot of effects. We just have the causes all wrong. Whether you think it's bent space or particle pressure, the inverse square law is the inverse square law. They both create it, but they create it through a different mechanism. But it's not going to radically change the world if you switch from believing in bent space and switch to believing particles are creating the pressure that pushes planets, because it doesn't, as a practical matter, it doesn't change much. All right, to protect their employers' investments in R&D. Look, but the point is that if LIGO is bullshit and CERN's all their little smashing of atoms and creating, these ghostly images, so indirect from the real event. You don't really see any of these particles they claim exist. They never saw a neutrino. They never saw a positron. They never saw any of this stuff. They're looking at trails, that require much bigger pieces of matter to be moved by these little tiny bits. And they're just assuming what little bits cause the bigger bits to move. And all that shit could be just absolute bullshit. I mean, the 100 and whatever 15 particles they've created could all just be crap. I mean, they could just be one phenomenon in a slightly changed circumstance. It's not a big change. They're just measuring the weight of parts flying off of a car wreck or something. And because it weighs more, they call it something else, but it's just hunks of metal. Anyway, scientists are competing for grants. The investments, the split screen is quite an improvement. You have changed how I understand physics. Nice work. Well, at least you ended with a good sentence. But the whole conversation before that, I don't think has much to do with how wrong it is to think of the function of the universe as being this wavy shit, thinking about photons being wavy. I don't think that has anything to do with commerce or anything. So I can't make heads or tails of your drawings, so please include planets in the solar system in your drawings to be clear for the layman. I think that's just got to be one of the silliest comments. I don't need to draw the whole solar system to explain the relationship between the Earth and the Sun. Just not necessary, idiot. Anyway, let's see. Why do you leave density out of your equations? I don't frankly do equations. So again, weird, but this density word coming up again. I mean, I like the word density, but I don't, what context are they using this in? It can't possibly be relevant to anything I'm really saying, because I'm basically saying that anything's what you're made out of is an absolute amount of a substance, the little force bits, and that's what you're made out of. And how dense it is doesn't really have anything to do with it. It's really about the absolute number. They're the ones doing the moving. All right, you keep denying the truth. What truth would this be? So let's just go to one of these links and see if it's preposterously silly. Oh, so look at that. He does a little Google search. Wave equation from Maxwell's equations. Well, isn't that cute? Yeah, too bad you can't see it. So it's actually a link to Google where he types in wave equation. So I guess that's some gimmick on the internet somewhere. Look, I've already pointed out, show me the factor in Maxwell's equations. Show me anywhere in Maxwell's equations where you have wave interference, or you have where it isn't made out of the wave isn't the byproduct of really rays of force. So show me that, and then you can make the claim that Maxwell's equations are wave equations. They were called that. That's not what they are. They're force equations. Asshole. I'm not denying anything. I'm asking you to demonstrate something. Demonstrate the factor. Demonstrate somewhere in his equation where you have something called the wave factor. There's no wave factor. All right. Let's see. Why, if waves are different than frequency, have different properties, i.e. reflecting off of, going through the stratosphere, etc. What the hell does that mean? Why RF waves? Oh, okay, of different. So I remember I read this one before. So I guess we've completed our task here. And obviously it's because they have different wavelengths. Oh, this guy's really annoying. He posts the same crap on another video. Let's see what this PDF is. Let's see. Experimental evidence of a photon's what anti-correlation effect on a beam splitter. A new light on single photon interference. Experimental evidence of a photon anti-correlation. What the hell could that mean? Effect on a beam splitter. Amazing. So this will be worth probably going over. Let's see, when is it from? 1985. That's pretty old. Abstract. We report on 2 experiments using an atomic cascade as a light source. Well, that makes a lot of sense. And a triggered detection scheme for the second photon of the cascade. The first experiment shows a strong anti-correlation between the triggered detections on both sides of a beam splitter. This result is in contradiction with any classical wave model of light, but in agreement with a quantum description involving single photon states. The same source and the detection scheme were used in a second experiment where we have observed interferences with a visibility over 98%. So anyway, I don't think experiments using a radioactive source of light are necessarily a good idea. But anyway, I guess it might be worth reading. But I'm doubting it. The fact that I never even heard of it doesn't sound too good. Oh, it's Alan Aspect. Oh, shit. Forget about it. What nonsense. It's going to be rubbish. So. Sure. Puff. Let's see what kind of wacky experiment it is. Triggered experiment. These are experiments that have never been duplicated. The detection of the first photon of the cascade produces a gate. So whatever this means, the first photon of the cascade, during which the photomultipliers, PM, are active. The probability of detection during the gate are with single. So they open a gate, let light in, and detect it. So very complex. This whole idea that they can time, this with that you can catch the same, you can release a photon and then catch it at some future point. That this is all crap. That's just prove it. Forget that shit. All right. Anyway, I mean, and a photo multiplier obviously takes a bit of time to actually register detection of a photon, because it has to basically go through the amplification process. So he probably doesn't even account for that. I don't have much regard for Allen aspect. Anyway. Oh, long article. Very long. So anyway, I think you can always go back to these source experiments, and you don't need to do these strangled high-tech ones to probably deduce the truth. But anyway, so at least it's a concession that it's not photons interfering with each other. Anti-correlation effect on the beam splitter. That's so I don't know whether he's saying it happens in the beam splitter, which was my argument. But regardless, even if it's on my side, I still don't think you need to do these complex experiments to figure out that there's a problem with the assumptions being made and such. Yeah, I don't know who's posting comments. Oh, it's just bullshit crap. Yes, you suck. Yeah, so there's spamming, spammers, little useless spammers. Okay, so enough of that. And yeah, so now I'll go to the live video and see if there's any comments worth reading, but I doubt it. Let's see, a bunch of gibberish here. Wow, a lot of people talking. All right, no sound. Hey, William, collective minds, no need for drama or debate, stupid egos. Focal point, let's see. What is this business? I see what you have inside, being the fact that connected upside down and whatever. I don't know what that is. I have an underlying idea that these are giant pipes underground. I don't know what that is, just to start with, but in reality, we're watching the frequencies in water freeze up, great waves. I don't know what the hell that is. Bullshit. Let's see, don't give them the energy draft. Find it fascinating. They always use bars, but never holes to see if the shape of the slit changes anything. Yeah, well, it's sort of, you can see the effect of the bar in the fact that because the bar is open at the top, like that, it's bigger than the round beam in the beam. So the beam's going through and there's nothing cutting off the rounded part of the top. And you can see that in the single slit experiment. When you have a very, very narrow slit, you can see that the maxima become cigar shaped, or whatever you want to call that, spaceship shaped. They point at the two ends and they're round at the top and the bottom. And I think that's a reflection of the round laser beam just stretched. I think so. What it does, I don't know what that means. Well, perceptions are filtered through, but don't if that's the reason. Well, perceptions are filtered though, but I don't if that's the reason. I don't know what that means. I would have a better reading for doing that then. I would have a better reading. I don't know. People don't write very coherently. Rudeness or vicious personal attacks by anyone is irrelevant and does not achieve anything. Well, it does. It distracts and destroys and eliminates, and it's hecklers are a terrible blight. Amendum has such is a shit talker. Is mathless ass nigga. Well, okay, that's enough of you, I guess. I got no use for your bullshit rhetoric. Grow up and such. For science, I don't know what that is. What about the measurement the astronomers made based on Einstein's guess that the position of the stars would change as the light passed near objects like the sun during eclipses? Yeah, he predicted something that wasn't proven. You don't understand, okay? The Eddington experiment was incredibly marginal, even with the huge Einstein cheat. So the math basically said you'll never be able to see our sun lens something because there isn't enough gravity. And what Einstein did to make it possible was he said, well, look, photons are moving the speed of light, so they're time dilated. So you can think that the photon is in the gravity twice as long. So they took a number that was like 10 to the minus 22 in terms of the weakness of this capacity to bend light, because close to the sun, you'd never see it because of the sun's corona. So you have to go a certain distance from the sun. The further away from the sun you go, the inverse square law makes the gravity too weak to bend the light. So it was a theoretical impossibility. And then Einstein said, well, let's make it a theoretical possibility by I'll just cut the math in half. So he cut the impossible number, 10 to the minus 22, to 10 to the minus 11. And that's so. And so then Eddington said, I'm going to go out and do this thing. And it's never been demonstrated. We had the best eclipse you could possibly imagine this year, in terms of, right over some of the best telescopes we got, the best instruments, the highest tech people, all that kind of shit. And there's been no announcement of any, we did it, we got the Eddington results. Nobody's done it. So nobody even planned ahead enough to get the images from 6 months. So when 6 months finally passes from the date of the eclipse, you'll know that nobody actually was able to duplicate these results. So again, you say he predicted something, yet there's no real evidence of it. And all the galactic lenses are insanely stupid. They don't make any logical sense. They can't be rationally made sense of. And so that's why they created dark matter, is so they can fix, because the math just doesn't work at all. There's not enough matter creating enough gravity to bend light. And yet we see these lensed images. So I'm just saying, his prediction hasn't been proven, shithead. And because you predict something based on wrong information, it's like his prediction of time dilation. The prediction is based on a wrong assumption that somehow an actual time dimension is being perverted, when the only thing that's really happening is there's real evidence that when you move something, you change its molecular structure. So when you move clocks, you break the clock. But there's no proof that space is bent or that time is a dimension that you can bend. Fuck you. All right, why do you always seem angry? Because of this. Because of this nonsense where you have to just keep pointing out that, you people believe shit that's based on little shreds of evidence, little tiny, tiny shreds of evidence, barely even a tiny association between the things. Again, single slits in water don't create a diffraction pattern, yet they create a diffraction pattern in light. It's a simple shit like that. All right, science is just the establishment interpretations of the units. They're abstractions, they're metaphysical, well, that's all bullshit. And other claims more than that is woo-woo nonsense. No, there's evidence that's in some categories very strong evidence of certain things, and then there's evidence again that's just weak evidence. There's associations, and it's like the evidence for all of their subatomic particles. Everybody thinks because they spend all this money at CERN and they have this huge collider and they got all this stuff that they're seeing really great pictures of tiny, tiny things. They're not seeing any pictures. They're still only knowing that these little bits exist because they move bigger bits. They're not seeing anything directly. They're only seeing it indirectly. And, and they're extrapolating as if they have a real good picture when all they have is fragments of a picture. All right, you don't have a point though. Inmendham has attempted to debunk majority expert opinions based on semantic arguments with no qualitative backing. Oh, except the fact that the evidence doesn't match the mathematics, and the claims certainly aren't proven by any of the evidence. Again, where's your proof that gravity bends light? Where's your proof that time is warped by some kind of frame moving? Yeah, you have none. Try to argue rationally on a social media site would make anyone angry. Well, it really is a thankless pursuit, so to speak. I mean, just can't believe that you can't provoke the conversation. You can't even bribe them to the conversation. I mean, I've offered real money to these people, thousands of dollars, defying them. Go ahead, for a few $1,000, I'll pay you, okay, to put your credibility on the line and say I'm a nutter and show how I'm a nutter. And then I'm taking me up on it. You don't need to be a scientist to understand the universe, as that's even a serious comment. You certainly don't need to be falsely trained in Babel. Like, when I went to school, I was taught that light was some wavy thing going this way, going this way. It's horse shit. It was a stupid notion to put in people's heads. It's just fucking retarded. It doesn't make any fucking sense at all. It's some sort of mechanical snaky thing that's snaking in two directions. And what the fuck is all that shit? It's shit. And so you think you're a scientist because you're willing to accept a pile of shit that was just made up? It's just made up shit. No evidence that fucking photon could give a fuck about magnetism, or that a photon could give a fuck about any notion of whatever electricity field is. There's no fucking such thing as the electrical force anyway. It's all magnetism. But they couldn't even figure out that electrons and protons are the magnetic monopoles, for fuck's sake. So yeah, a good science education is going to make you a retard. What about compartmentalization? I don't know what that is. I didn't say that. So, let's see. Some of his theories make sense, but need testing. Well, I think I have tested some of them, but there's some of them you're never going to be able to have a test for. All we have in gravity is the inverse square law. And then you have to make a rational deduction about whether you think there's some magic pulley thing where space is being sucked up by the sun somehow, and the sucking is pulling the earth with the sucking of the space. Or you understand that, oh yeah, there's all this cosmic background radiation. There's all this radiation hitting things all the time. Right now we're in atmospheric pressure, and it's pushing all of our skin together and holding everything together. All kinds of invisible forces. And yeah, it's not much of a reach at all to imagine the universe has a bunch of force out there that we can't see, but we can obviously measure it. We can measure it. We can't see it, but we can see its effects. Shit. Some of these, okay, anyway. Inmendham needs to use his trust fund to build a lab, I guess that means. Lab, yes, you had to retype it. Fuck. Why? I'm doing theoretical physics in the first place. I really don't need to do a lab. What I should be able to do is point out a couple of flaws. Like, why don't we ask a college that has interferometers laying all over the place, and it has a lot of sophisticated equipment. Well, why don't we ask them to do the single photon experiment with an interferometer? And let's just see what happens. That would be a good experiment to do. Squeeze those grape atoms. Mars, either you see the universe as an infinite thing, and thus discrete atoms are not unique little bits, but a repeat pattern of energy. Or you believe that every atom has its own tiny bit of eternity and the universe is constructed of all the bits. I don't think I want to do either one of those. Are demonstrations walking as glue and framework, what? And dimensions working as glue and framework to enable particles to move back and forth on different spectrums. Whatever. Spectrums of what? Dimensions of what? You're talking about the metaphysical again. Yes, I mean, all these people are just, they have no ability to accept a universe that's dirt simple. Proton, electron. Okay. And then there's plus force and minus force. That's it. Two kinds of force bits, two kinds of matter bits, essentially. And everything is made out of that. Really simple. Let's see. That's the explanation used to describe why gravity is weak. Well, again, gravity is obviously not weak. It's kind of silly to call a force that holds galaxies together weak. It's just retarded. That's the problem with modern science has. It fails to recognize the difference between the objective universe and the universe as we see it through the limited units we choose to measure. I think we have plenty of data. We just have, like I said, it always seems like people have this bent to go religious, to go with the mystical answer rather than the sensible answer. And I think that's all history's demonstrating. Most of the early scientists were ether believers. I mean, the Bohr was this silly person who thought everything in the universe was unquantizable. I mean, Einstein had the right idea in the sense that he wanted to describe the universe as a ticking clock, and it was all clockwork. But you know, he didn't have the he didn't have it as a principle, and then he just started inventing wacky ideas also. It has to travel through more dimensions than other forces. Oh, dimensions. And the biggest crime in modern science is claiming time is a dimension. Well, it's not the biggest, but it's a big one. Time is motion. That's it. Well, time's just a function. Time is a byproduct of the fact that motion takes time, that light doesn't move instantaneously from one place to another. If light moved instantaneously from one place to another, then there wouldn't be any time and there wouldn't be any universe. But that's all it is. It's just a byproduct that light moves slow. So even though light's moving incredibly fast, it's moving a lot slower than instantaneous, which means there's time in the universe now. But that's all it is. It's not a fucking dimension. That's it. It's an abstract, defined rate at which we compare everything else to. That's right. There's certain things that are pretty reliable in the amount of time they take, and you just compare everything to that thing that's reliable. And photons happen to be one of those reliable things. Having filtered stimuli in the way we experience the universe is not over exhaust information coming into our brains. I don't know. Fuck this beastly guy, William Beastly. Whatever the fuck he is. Idiot. Oh, something happened to the comments. Jumped. I don't know why they jumped. I was perfectly fine reading along and something went all wrong. Okay, so he's just talking shit. Later, folks. Good, he left. So, angry pool man. And then when are you going to BK the drunken peasants? To BK the drunk, I don't know what that means. I guess I'll be on the drunken peasants when they invite me. But until then, I guess I won't be. Anyway, photodiodes are how those double slit and single slit patterns are plotted in the lab. Genius. So again, I'm the one who actually used photodiodes back in 1980. Okay, I was using them to create control devices with LEDs back in 1980, asshole. I know what photodiodes are capable of, stupid fuck. And again, well, there's no point to say it over and over again. It's the pattern is obvious. You think our eyes fail to see the pattern properly, and yet we can see it when it happens with electrons. I'm just saying, how do you explain why we see the pattern correctly when it's electrons, and we don't see the pattern properly when it's photons? Why don't you explain that? Obviously, the pattern we're seeing in electrons is actually photons we're seeing. It's the same thing. Everything we see is photons, idiot. In Mendham, I'd really like to see you do some more amazing atheist videos. I don't know why the fuck this stuff is here. It's funny to hear you call him fat, wasteful fuck. But anyway, I've tried to watch The Drunken Peasants and say, well, maybe there's something I can comment on, but there really isn't. I mean, they're 13. It's all 13-year-old humor. I mean, I don't get it. So yeah, no, I don't really have an interest. Also, the Michelson-Morley experiment was used to measure ether drag. They already knew that light doesn't travel at a constant speed relative to the privileged frame. Liar. So again, I don't know who's thinking that light doesn't travel the same speed, but whatever. Photodiodes are how those double slit, single slit patterns are plotted in the lab, genius. Well, why don't you show where they've done it in the lab then? I mean, what is so complicated for you to show me the experiment where they used a photodiode and they got the smooth pattern? Why don't you just show the evidence? Also, the Michelson-Morley experiment was used to measure ether drag. I don't know why he's pointing that out. They already knew that light didn't travel at a constant speed. Again, same thing all over again. Let's see, you could do this test by measuring the speed of light without the use of these pesky beam splitters. And guess what? It will be C, regardless of direction relative to the direction of the Earth, jackass. You're always moving the emitter and the receiver. So you can't make a measurement of speed. But anyway, keep trying. I don't care. But I just mean, yeah, obviously there's no drag. The photons don't get dragged. They don't get bent by gravity, and they don't drag anywhere. They don't get dragged. They don't drag. None of that shit can happen. He doesn't even know what an ether is. You are assuming too much. Well, I know it's some kind of fake answer for why things happen. That's what I know it to be. Another fake answer. Doesn't answer the question, just it's another God of the Gaps pile of crap. The magical invisible soup did it. Yeah, fuck that. Okay, it doesn't explain anything. For your ether to solve the problems, the biggest problem in physics is the biggest forces like gravity and magnetism. They have no explanation for the source of the force. Nothing. Every other force needs a big rocket engine, needs something. Anything else that happens in the universe, we have to explain where the energy came from. Yet gravity, no explanation for what's moving the planets, where the force came from. The sun doesn't get lighter to make gravity. The earth doesn't get lighter to make gravity. It's not burning any energy. Where's the energy coming from? Same thing with magnets. Two magnets move together, no explanation for where the energy comes from. How does an ether explain where the energy comes from? It doesn't. Ah, shit. Now, do you know how GPS satellites work? I mean, when people go back to this nonsense, yeah, and the funny thing is, we're the ones moving faster than the satellites. Irony much. Because we're the ones bouncing on the surface of the Earth in the strong gravity. The satellites are bouncing in the weak gravity. We're the ones actually traveling more distance and going faster. Stupid fuck. What's your proof that Ton's tip-tap? Oh, another, I guess I'll get rid of, that's the cowboy. I don't know, he's such a faggot. He uses this tip-tappy thing. It's just so cringeworthy. Whatever. I mean, I guess he's true. It does get to me because, really extremely gay talk is a little irritating. Like, being gay is okay, but when you're way gay in the way you talk, like even saying way gay is really kind of gay. Yeah, that does bug me, I have to admit. And so when a man starts saying tip-toey, tappy words, it cringes me. All right, anyway, yes, animal crackers in my soup. Well, that kind of cringes me a little too, to tell you the truth. Pension physicists go loop-de-doop. So, again, that's a guy using my name. So, I guess that's worthy of a block. All right. This shit keeps going on here. People ought to shut the fuck up so I can get out of here. I mean, you're arguing A plus B equals C, where A is X, and it looks like, oh, fuck that. It moved anyway. Good. Let's see. I need qualitative data to affirm that A isn't equal to X. I don't know what that means. Good for me that I don't know. Oh yeah, speaking of which, are traps gay? I don't know what that means. Oh yeah, speaking of which, are traps gay? What the fuck does that mean? Jesus Christ. Quantitative. What does that mean? Read correctly, ho. Fuck yourself in the butt. And such. Alright. Maybe I'll just block everybody. I think I got enough of them blocked now that I don't have to pay any attention. So anyway, enough fun. And we'll move on. Yeesh. So if anybody ever wants to join one of these conversations as a person and actually have a personal conversation, certainly am willing. If you're a reasonable sort, PM the channel and such. So yeah, there's nothing in the group chat. I don't know why they. I don't even know why they have this stupid thing called a group chat. What the fuck good is it? Okay, nobody uses it. All right, till the next time and such. I've had enough. Mostly.